We're back with another episode of the Budget Beach Build. And in keeping in the theme of the Budget Build, we are doing a full mechanical overhaul in today's episode with the help of Max, DIY style, on the floor of the shed. All this stuff was sent to us by Automotive Superstore, and we have got a big weekend ahead of us. We've got gaskets. It's optimistic. If we get there, sweet. We're gonna give it a full fluid service. We've got new brakes, we've got new bearings, we've got grease, heater hoses, plugs, leads, dizzy cap, all manner of things to get this thing running a little bit happier and a little bit less turdy. Most of the stuff that's in this, as you've probably seen in previous episodes, is old, worn, and shit. So I think we're gonna have a pretty spicy day ahead of us. That's why I called in Max. That is putrid. This is why basic maintenance is important on your four drives, people. This thing, I've mentioned it before, has the shittest engine known to man. This particular one has done almost 300,000 kilometers and is very, very sad. Today's mission is basically just to make it a little bit more reliable and a little bit happier for this first stage of the build. Eventually I would love to swap this out with something way nicer, but that is not very budget friendly of us, is it? So we're going to do all the sort of basic mechanical bits and pieces that you would normally do. Filters, fluids, leads, coils, give it a whole bunch of new goodness.
Ignition leads, coil pack leads, distributor leads,
Coil on plug.
spark plug leads.
We're going to update the Haltech. We're going to just plug in, make sure it's all good, run it up on the dyno, check what boost.
Nexus R5.
Make sure we got the knock sensors plugged in. Kidding, it's the 80 series. Now for those playing along at home that actually care about what's happening here today, you might be wondering why we got these things, some billet bolt-on window spacers. That is because these ROH rims that we've got, whilst they are gorgeous, they are mostly designed for the new model Jimneys. That's what zero offset suits. On these older Sierras, the narrow tracks, you want to run a little bit of negative offset so that you get the wheel out away from the leaf spring. Otherwise you're going to have scrubbing issues, which is what we're having. So we're going to chuck a couple of these spacers on just to help bring that wheel track out a bit and clear the tire off those springs, because right now if you go full lock, it hits the spring, and obviously the corner of a leaf spring is a pretty sharp little boy, so we're trying to prevent any nasty. While Max is around taking the most amount of time I've ever seen someone do a wheel bearing, I am going to start ruining everything in the top of the engine. I'm going to drop some fluid, and then once I've dropped some fluid myself, I'm going to start working on the car. We have got a singular belt that does everything in this car. So one of these guys right there, again, Automotive Superstore sent us all these things. We've got lower and upper radiator hose, which is super tough. These ones don't particularly look bad, but while we're in here, I figured the smart thing to do is change them. Previously, I've already swapped out the overflow, which was cracked, so that's already been taken care of. We've got a rocker cover gasket, which we'll do. We've got leads, we've got spark plugs, oil field. What have I just witnessed? Anyway, just checking that all the hoses and stuff that we ordered are indeed correct, which it appears they are, which is a really nice change, because usually when I do things, it never ends up working. We are under the mighty beast. And overall, for a $40 car, I've certainly seen worse turds, that's for shizzle. We're going to drop the coolant out of this bad boy, this little drain plug here, so we can start swapping out these crusty looking hoses. This bottom one I don't actually think has ever been changed. Rock hard, and somehow the rubber hose is rusted. I don't think this thing's going to hold much coolant, because it is genuinely the smallest little engine in the world, so we'll see what happens. Those don't look like they've ever been lubed or greased in their entire life. What we're finding with this is that this car, unfortunately, in its 4 decades on this miserable godforsaken earth, hasn't had a lot of love, which is probably why it was the cheapest thing I could buy on the market. But it's okay, we persevere. It's getting all the good stuff it's ever hoped and dreamt of now. So we are chucking these doggies in it. These are the DBA Street Series pads. We run these exact same pads in the 79, I think. If not the 79, definitely the 80 series. The thought process is if we look after the brakes now, we do new drums, shoes, wheel cylinders, pads, rotors, master. When we do go to engine swap this thing with Max later in the year, the brakes will at least be up to scratch. Obviously it's pretty overkill now, but future proofing. Doing the smart thing for a change. Update time, Max is having an absolute blast getting those pads in. We have no coolant in this thing and some fresh diddly hoses, which is kind of hot. I'm gonna drop the oil, bang a filter on it, leads, plugs, rocket cover gasket. What else have we got today? Dizzy cap, rotor button, pretty much it. Then we can start slinging in new one of these. I don't think I have a new air filter for it, which is kind of sus, but anyway. We also have a new inline fuel filter. Don't know where that sits in terms of the car. I feel like I saw it out the back down near the tank, so I might climb under that and just swap that out as well. Give this thing a new lease on life. I want to know from you guys in the comments. This right now, 1.3 litre carburetted G13A. I think I looked it up online. It's around 60 horsepower at the crank factory, not 300 or 1,000 kilometers later. Should we, option A, get a bolt-on Weber kit for this thing, bigger carb, get a little bit more power and make it a bit more reliable? Option 2, we look at engine swapping this with something in the similar family. So either the 1.6 Swift motor or something similar to that. Or option 3, we go all out and go K-Series, rotor, SR, something crazy and give this thing a little bit of extra pep in its step. I'm open to all sorts of ideas. So drop a comment below and let me know. Okay, quick update time. Here's the mess we're dealing with. You know how we said you could do everything that we're doing today without a workshop on the floor of your driveway? We may have to redact those comments because everything is right now. But anyway, this thing, service, very good. About to just dump some new water and some new oil in there and chuck a bloody filter on there. Max is having a hard time with this caliper. The basic issue here is that the 40-year-old caliper is seized. Who would have thought? Funny enough. Shock horror. Not the actual piston, but the actual little slide. One of the neighbours just up here has got a vice that we might come borrow and smack the out of it and see if we can't get it loose. Basically just going to see what happens. I think the rest of this stuff is going to be quite basic. Dizzy, very easy to get to. Leads and plugs, extremely simple. And the rocket cover, I believe, is just 4 very small bolts, which is cool. And then it comes with these new little metal washer gaskets as well as a part of the Pro Torque seal kit from Automotive Superstore. So fingers crossed, that is all a lot smoother sailing than what Max is dealing with. Okay, we had minor difficulty with the other side. This side is going together much easier. Max has been smashing that out. I got a little bit ADHD carried away painting the car trailer. I think the cool thing about working on old boxes that weren't ever worth anything and still aren't really worth much is the fact that you can sort of afford to f around a bit. And if it does all go pear-shaped, it's not really the end of the world because it is generally going to be very easy to fix, especially when you have a Max Davis at your disposal. The plan now is to pop this rocket cover off because it is weeping a little bit. On closer inspection, we'll be able to slide it out quite easily, I dare say. And then we'll put that back together. Leads, fluids, Bob's your uncle. There's little tiny bits like this hanging on by the skin of its teeth. Smart man probably would have allowed time and gotten paint to paint this rocket cover with it on. Not me. And gloves. And gloves. We are committed. This cork gasket match, holy, is the most
How is that not leaking?
not good thing I've ever seen. I just wouldn't classify this as a healthy motor. I really wouldn't. Now, it is worth mentioning while we're here that Automotive Superstore sent us all the bits and pieces for this project today. I wasn't sure how it was going to go because this being an older car was very hard to find parts for. But the cool thing about Automotive Superstore is if it's not listed on their website, get in touch with the guys because they've got a stack of suppliers that they can source bits for if you do have a bit more of a unique or harder to find vehicle. Alternatively, you can chuck your rego in on the Automotive Superstore website and it will bring up only the bits that fit your car. And that is a really handy tool, that's for sure. We're getting through all these bits and pieces now. The rocker cover is a disgusting looking thing. And in the top of this engine is similarly really quite gross. There is no denying that this thing has had a hard life. But anyway, for $3,000 and a budget build, we're not complaining. That was the most putrid gasket I've ever had to get off a vehicle in my life. And the good news is I'm not convinced that this is the right gasket. So what we might have done here is what I'd call a grade A stitch up. And this could be about to be getting sicker flexed on. But we'll see what happens. Tied it up. This is going to go down. This, I mean, just take a look at what we were dealing with. That is the gasket we pulled off this thing. And look how brittle it is. Like it just crumbles in your hand without even trying. So the fact that it wasn't hemorrhaging more oil than what it was is a miracle, which is wild. And then it comes with these new little seals as well. So they are what go through the bolts through the top of the rocker cover. So obviously it's good to have those too. Otherwise, guess what? Leaky boy. Update. Front end pretty much done. I'm going to smack some leads and plugs in it. While I'm doing that, Max is going to quickly attend to the rear brakes. In terms of what we have for the rear brakes, let me show you. Most importantly, we've got DBA brake shoes. We've also got something really exciting, which I'll show you here, is these guys. So DBA actually do wheel cylinders and all sorts of business for these things. So this will have the full DBA catalog provided to us by them at Automotive Superstore, which is really cool. If we do go and put a spicier engine in this thing, knowing that we've got fresh brakes and at least better brakes than standard is going to be very nice to have.
Some little brake fairies been.
Some little weasel has already been in here and put new shoes and brake cylinders in here for us, which is exciting. Maximus Prime is just going to check everything's all Mickey Mouse in there, give it a bit of a clean up, and we're going to smack the drums back on, I think. Fit up the spacers so the rear track matches the front. We don't have any scrubbing issues or anything like that. And then happy days, I'm just up the front. I've got these Bosch Super Sports ignition leads to swap in, which is going to be cool. We've got some plugs and stuff as well. We didn't manage to get a new coil, but that is something that we'll be replacing pretty soon as well, I think. And then Max has the relatively disgusting job of the brake master cylinder, which I know he's not going to be stoked on because it's in pretty rough condition. But anyway, I'll show you that. We'll do these leads.
You been just putting these wherever you think they should go?
Yeah, I did. I thought I'd just do my own sort of custom tune. So instead of the Suzuki recommended firing order, we're actually going 4-4-2-4-3-1. So
That'll be heaps smoother.
it should make it just run a lot better. Obviously, we really want to get what we can out of 4. That's why we're firing it twice for every one of cylinder 1. These are actually quite crusty, so it's a good thing we're replacing them. All right, leads in, plugs in. Turns out I can't read, folks. I got
It's exactly as it
1,
can.
3, 4, 2, and I had 1, 2, 3, 4. One of the last jobs.
Little spinny rotor thing inside the Dizzy. Wears out the end from all the sparking. So we're just putting it fresh. It's actually genuine Bosch going in. I don't think it's genuine Bosch coming out of it. Which is pretty cool. Made in Japan.
Tough as.
Made in India.
This thing, I think we can confidently say, has genuinely never sounded better either. Running a slightly thicker oil. The sticker on the bonnet from 40 years ago reckons it wants 10W40. It's 300,000 kilometers to me, suggested it wanted 20W60 gear oil mineral. So yeah, gear oil, that's what we have to do. Max is telling me nothing but bad news, but in good news, we have a functioning vehicle, which is exciting. Max is under there bleeding the brake. We had to pull that caliper off, which was proven to be slightly problematic. But we're getting to the pointy end of today, which has been a long one. Bit of gear oil in the gearbox diffs and transfer, brake master cylinder, and then that's going to be it for our mechanical overhaul. This thing's genuinely never run so good, so I think it was in desperate need of some love, that's for sure. That is... Show the camera.
Remember, most of that was clean too.
That is putrid. This is why basic maintenance is important on your 4 drives, people. You should have seen the state of some of the nuts and bolts and threads, fluids that have come out of this thing so far. It's actually f***ed up. All right, next on the agenda, master cylinder. Now, this was anyone's guess as to what we were going to get sent, because there's a lot of different masters and a lot of different Sierras over a lot of different years. And I had to try and match this one up as best as I could from photos that I had of the engine bay and sending them through to Automotive Superstore. But with a bit of luck, we've got the right one here. Looking at the state, some of the fluids in this car, I'm predicting what lies at the bottom of that is going to be putrid. And looking at the state and the corrosion on the outside, it's probably overdue for change. So this item from Protex should be our savior if I ordered the correct thing, which is highly unlikely, but very tough. Today was fundamentally undoing 40 years of neglect, rot, rust, putrid fluids, and that was just Max, not even the car. Nah, it was actually a massive day. Very big thanks to Max. We did brakes, bearings, master cylinder, fluids, hoses,
leads,
yeah,
plugs,
full service. Got this thing actually running way happier, way better, way smoother than I think it ever has before. And one thing that we didn't get around to at KLR was fitting the spacers and trimming the bull bar or the bumper to suit the tyres. So we did a little bit of that today as well, which you didn't see on the camera, but we've done it anyway. So massive shout out to Automotive Superstore for sending us out all that stuff. Everything fitted, which absolutely shocking for a car like this, which is really quite hard to find parts for. We had no dramas today. Massive shout out to Max for lending us his weekend. If you guys are loving this little budget build, just know that you guys too can do all this sort of stuff yourself in the driveway. We had no fancy tools, no hoist, a couple of blokes, and a big day. About as budget friendly and DIY as it gets. We'll see you next Thursday for another episode of Absolute Shenanigans.